Okay, this special meeting of April 9th is called to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mayor Studebaker.
Here.
Councilor O'Neill.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Lamont.
Here.
Wendland.
Here.
Mans.
Here.
Kohoff.
Here.
And I'll also just state that joining us in the meeting are Mark Bennett, City Manager, David Powell, City Attorney, Anne Marie Simpson, City Recorder, Julia Warren, Human Resources Analyst, Anthony Hooper, Public Works Director, and Katie Kirkland, Citizen Information Specialist.
Okay, thank you. What's the City Manager? What's the first item on the agenda?
So the first item on the agenda is the temporary utility payment assistance program proposal. I think Julia's going to take it from here, but I want you to know we started out talking about what were the things we could do for low-income residents who might be affected. And it very clearly became apparent that the most immediate thing we could do is help people with their utility bills. So Julia and a team of folks have done some great work to bring you this draft proposal. So I'm going to hand it to her.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. So the temporary utility assistance program has had some slight refining. So some of the requirements and criteria have been better defined. So this program would provide temporary assistance to Lake Oswego utility customers who have lost their jobs or whose business revenues have declined due to closures related to the executive order of the governor. So that would be the Stay Home, Save Lives, and then also the prohibiting on-premise drinking of alcohol and eating food. So the funds can be donated by anybody who would like to contribute, and this would be set up through a donation site on the city's website. Once the donations are collected, the program will be administered by a nonprofit to be selected by the city. City Council can also consider contributing to the fund, and staff has recommended $20,000 as an initial amount. And staff will monitor the fund and then return to Council to authorize more funds if that's. This concludes the report.
Julia, how do you determine if somebody really needs the money for the utilities? Is it just they say so, or what? Do you do anything else?
So the nonprofit would actually have an application process that they would monitor. So they would do all the applying through the nonprofit. We would send them our recommendations and criteria.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? No other questions, okay. Do the donations made typically with payment of the utility bill by particular households?
The best way to donate would be through the city website. So I'll need to check with finance on exactly how that would work, but I think definitely that the best way to donate would be through the city website.
Basically, you're saying go on the website and use your credit card to donate however much you want to do. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions, anybody? All right. Julia, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I think Councilor Lamont has a question.
Yep.
I didn't see,
Yep.
Councilor Lamont, have you activated your video?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Well, my quick question was for Martha. I think we had talked about the municipal grants and the neighborhood enhancement funds. Are we processing those, or are we holding that back to maybe contribute to that fund, the new fund?
So the neighborhood enhancement grants, I just had a discussion with Director Siegel a couple of days ago. I think what we're going to do is recommend to you that we wait a month to make a decision about those, because we actually think that there may be some things that neighborhoods need to do at the end of this. We actually talked about trying to figure out ways where neighbors could have electronic meetings available to them, so that when they start meeting again, they can do it virtually as opposed to having to do it. Anyway, we feel the neighborhoods might still need some of those funds available, so I would recommend that we wait a month to make that decision. The grants, the only grants that we've suspended at this point are the tourism grants. And that is really because we're not collecting any lodging tax revenue right now. So it's not awarding those grants doesn't actually give you any more funds to allocate.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Julia.
Sure, thank you.
So I think we're looking for a council action on this so that we can proceed to set it up.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we enact this program for utility donations by the citizens and that we allocate $20,000 for starting the program.
Second.
Discussion?
Where's the $20,000 coming from?
It's coming from utility funds split evenly across water, sewer, storm, and transportation. Not equally, but the same way it would be distributed in your average household bill.
Mr. Powell?
Mayor, the suggested motion also included authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with a nonprofit entity to implement the program.
Well, then I guess I will add that to my motion.
That would, thank you.
Second.
Councilor Mann, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Recorder, would you please call the roll on this?
Yes, Mayor Studebaker,
Yes.
Counselor O'Neill,
Yes.
Nguyen,
Yes.
Lamont,
Yes.
Wendland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Koha.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. What's the next item on the agenda? Just telling us what's going on?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is I have 3 quick items, and then I'd like to hand it over to Anthony to sort of brief you on what's going on in Public Works, and then ask Katie to give you a quick update, and then we'll answer your questions.
Before we do that, can I talk a little bit about the meeting schedules?
Absolutely.
Okay, I sent out an email today suggesting that we have, instead of having 2 meetings a week, that we have 1 meeting a week on Tuesdays of each week. I've had one response a couple responses, but I'd like to know if you guys have any. I know Councilor Kohlhoff would like to have 2 a week. Does anybody else feel that we should continue with 2 a week? I guess that's a no.
That's, Mayor. At this time, I think once a week would be sufficient. Unless there were, if City Manager Bennett felt that twice a week would serve additional value, I'm fine with once a week.
I agree.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Kohlhoff.
Well, I'm not as concerned about whether we have once a week or twice a week. What my larger concern, though, is that we use this time right now to good advantage. You know, we don't necessarily need to just have updates about the virus. We're getting that, as you mentioned, from a variety of sources. My concern is, we've got a goal list, like Councilor Mott has brought up, that would choke a horse. And we have the time now and should be, I think, investing in some of those study sessions and where we're not necessarily as busy with other meetings and so forth. But the second piece is that and probably even more problematic than the health risk is the collapse of our economy, or the threatened collapse. And I see that might invite some pretty serious conversations and discussions. So if we did it once a week and that was sufficiently long or available opportunity to discuss, then that's fine. The issue to me is more, do we use this time to try to get ahead of those 2 problems?
That's fine. That's fine. I hear you. That makes sense. Okay, let's, and one thing we've been telling people about the gardens that we're gonna decide on the 13th. If we do this, we'll decide on the 14th, which is Tuesday, instead of Monday, rather than having Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of next week. Does that make sense, or do you want to meet on Monday instead of Tuesday next week?
I would actually suggest to you that we go ahead with Monday and then have that be your only meeting next week and then switch to Tuesdays starting on the 21st.
That's satisfactory to me. Are the rest of you okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Then we've got that. Do we need Mr. Powell, do we need a motion to do that?
No, I don't think you do, Mayor.
Okay, so we will have our next meeting on Monday, the 13th of April.
Yes,
Very
and then the
good.
next one after that will be the 21st of April. And so we'll cancel the one that was scheduled for the 16th.
Okay, great. Yes, Councilor Mott.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get the chamber back in the loop. They've got us down for April 13th at 6:30, but we're talking about 4 o'clock, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so I'll call Liz to let her know to change it to 4.
all right, thank you. All right, now go ahead, City Manager.
Yeah, so there's two things I want to make sure you all know right away. First, we are following up on the first of these I think we had, where we asked you to put boards and commissions recruitments on hold. Our proposal at this point is to start boards and commissions recruitment on April 20th, so a week from Monday. Run it all the way through the month of May, which hopefully will still give you enough time to make appointments either at your second meeting in June or your first meeting in July. Is that all right with everybody? The timing works with the newspaper advertisements, and hopefully you'll be able to have some in-person meetings by the end of June.
Are you talking about online interviews again?
Probably we'll be dealing with online interviews. I mean, unless something really radical changes, I suspect we're in this no gatherings until at least the second week of June.
Well, so we're obviously not going to have the format where everybody came together on the same day. Okay,
Well, you might be able to do, well, we wouldn't come together.
yeah,
You might be able to set up something where we did all the interviews on the same day. We just did them virtually so that we minimize the impact on people's schedules.
wow, okay. All right,
Councilor
Thank you.
Lamont?
Yeah, I agree with the mayor. I think we did that annual target day. It was a long, rough day to get through it. We got a lot done. So if we have to do it virtually, that's fine, and just split us up into taking of interviews. And if somebody's overloaded, I know that Parks had, 18 applicants last time. We could spread that out even more, you know?
Yeah,
But I think we can,
let's hope we have that problem again, right?
Yes.
That's a great problem to have.
yeah. But online like this would be fine. If like 2 counselors and a chair of the committee or whatever, we just go through them. Be fine.
It just might be that you don't make your appointments to the first meeting in July. So we ask folks who are on commissions to extend their term for another couple of weeks before we get their replacements appointed. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, great. And then I just wanted to let you know that as of 3:30 today, we'd already received about 180 applications for the small business loan program. It's going to take us a while to process that. So if you get questions about how soon will folks know, it may take us a while to go through that number of applications. That's all I have.
well, the other thing was,
Whoop.
we had, let's see, it was the idea of rescheduling a kind of a mini session on goals and yeah, goals.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Kohlhoff that after the lifting of the stay-home orders, you're going to have to turn your attention to the business and retail and the economic environment in the community. And I'm concerned that you have some things on your goal list that may no longer be priorities, and you have some things that are on your goal list that you might want to make even higher priorities at the end of this. I hear Councilor Kohlhoff's desire for the council to start working on some of those goals, but I also think the environment has changed substantially in terms of our ability to execute on some of those goals. And so before you guys make a lot of policy progress, I want to be thinking about whether or not some of those things we can actually afford anymore, to be quite candid. as we move ahead. So I don't want you guys to spend a lot of time working on things that we then are going to have to scale back because we no longer have the financial resources to execute.
All right, we'll get started looking at that. Council Wendland?
Oh. You muted yourself, John.
You're muted. John, you're muted. You're still muted.
I thought I'd never see the day.
I guess on the bigger picture is we are talking about finances, and I know it's early, but it would be helpful to have an update on, where we are money-wise, and where you think we have potential holes and challenges.
Yeah, Sean Cross has been working on that. What I can tell you sort of in a nutshell is that next fiscal year, the fiscal year that starts on July 1, we're probably mostly okay, except for in a couple of specific areas. It's sort of our long-term thinking about gas tax revenue, lodging tax, and some other of the revenue sources that are more cyclic. And also, if we can't have events, or if events are smaller, if classes are smaller, there's some elements of our business model we really need to revisit.
I think you're going to also have some increased non-payments on property taxes as well.
But I will tell you that we already build in a substantial factor for estimating that folks won't pay their taxes. So
All right, thank you.
I'm less concerned about that than I am about revenue sources that are heavily dependent on discretionary consumer spending.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Councilor Lamont.
Councilor Powell, do you want to go before me? You had your hand up?
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
Okay, and I think if we go to once a week, if that's the new format, and we do a quick update on the virus situation, obviously if there's an emergency or more action, I think filling in the gaps with some of the things that we need to be working on would be great, and we can catch up. And I think the big thing for us, not only in the goal and of the money in the account, but what is our staffing looking like if we're at a skeleton crew on some of these things? And I know we're not down to zero as far as staffing, but we just have to be honest about what we can do.
Yeah, I just don't want to overpromise that we can give you a lot of really meaty policy conversations in the environment that we're operating in right now. It's tough even at staff for us to plan more than about a week and a half ahead. So us thinking about a project that has 3 or 4 years worth of sort of policy dimensions is pretty tough right now.
Mr. Powell.
Yes, if your only meeting next week is going to be on Monday, then I'll also need to bring to you yet another extension of the emergency declaration, because that expires on the 19th. So at least that'll take you on through to May 3rd or something like that. So that'll be on your agenda as well.
What if we don't want to extend it?
Well, then it ends.
Wouldn't that be nice?
No, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else?
No, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony now and let him give you an update about what's going on with Public Works.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Hooper.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me here, and thank you, Council. First off, I want to say that Public Works that we're currently working, we've been working and we haven't stopped, and that I'm very proud of my team for being positive and adapting. And we've had to be very creative in the way that we've done our operations.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know.
And so moving forward, here are some things that we've done at our operations.
Thanks.
So we have instituted, everybody has their own personal vehicle. So what we're trying to do is isolate people out as much as we possibly can so they're not exposed to one another. We have enacted a 6-foot rule at all times, and we've done a number of things to limit the interaction. Typically in the morning, what would happen is that the crew would come together in a crew room and they would have a morning meeting. Instead, what we're doing is each employee is going directly from their their personal vehicle straight to their work vehicle. So if their work vehicle is a sweeper, then they're going right to their sweeper. And then what they're doing is they're calling in to a conference line for each crew, and they're having a morning meeting through the phone, and then they're also getting their assignments for the day that way. And then during the day, if they need to use a restroom, instead of coming back to the maintenance center, what they're doing is we position porta potties around the city strategically for them to go use a restroom. So what we really have done is limited the amount of interaction that they're doing within the maintenance center themselves. And there really is not a whole lot of usage in there these days because people are out in their vehicles. It's kind of the new office. And one of these, for example, our street sweeper, when he gets in there at the morning and then he leaves at the end of the day, he will call in before he leaves, check in with his supervisor to make sure that he knows that he's safe and they get in his vehicle. As far as I'm concerned, he's probably one of the most quarantined persons in the whole city because he's working individually. He's in his own vehicle the whole time, and he's very safe. And so we've actually, our priority has been to pick work that is able to have them work individually as much as possible. And when we have to work in groups, and we have to occasionally, we're 6 feet apart. And if we can't stay 6 feet apart, then we're going to wear protective equipment in order to be closer than that. But for the most part, we've been able to stay and do jobs that have been 6 feet apart. And we've pretty much prioritized that because, once again, we need to keep our employees healthy and safe. And whenever they're dealing with the public, the priority is to stay 6 feet apart. So for the most part, we've been able to do, I would say 90% of our activities we've been able to do. Wastewater is kind of the trickiest because we work in teams a lot. So we're working a lot individually, trying to work individually where we can. But that one is the hardest work group to work around. For the most part, all the other jobs can be done individually. One thing I should mention is that police and fire is commonly referenced as essential employees. Our employees are essential as well. We have to have them on staff and have them working. And for example, if there's like a main break and a water main break and water is not getting to the neighborhood, we can't just let that go. We have to respond or else the whole neighborhood will be without water. Same thing with like a sewer overflow or a pump station that ended up breaking. We have to make sure that we fix that as quick as possible because if we don't, that could be a health hazard. So there are things that we do that we just have to be stacked up for. So our strategy right now is working as much as we possibly can individually and keeping everybody safe so that when we need to respond on emergencies, we can. And some of those we might have to work in groups, but then we will give protective equipment for that. And face masks, we have N95 face masks and other things that we can do to provide for keeping our staff safe. We've also, I'll just rapid fire a few other things we've done. We've staggered start times. We have enacted policies for cleaning shared vehicles and wiping them down. We have, once again, rethought the way that we even use our space. So, the restrooms, like I said, we have, the only problem with a lot of these things is that people are a little more isolated and they're not interacting with their coworkers as often. So one thing I try to do is on Fridays, touch base with people and encourage that we talk to each other a little bit more and that we do reach out to each other via our cell phones just to check in with one another from time to time, make sure we're all doing all right. Anyways, I kind of rattled through a lot of things, but I guess the long and short of it is we're still working, we're still serving the community, and once again, our staff is working very hard to make sure that we keep the city going.
Thank you. Questions?
Mayor, may I just interrupt real quick? Councilor
Sure.
Manns no longer has power in her neighborhood, so she has left the meeting, just so that you know.
It may have come back on. I heard a screech, which I'm going to try it right now. I have called in. So, I will let you know if I can't get in.
Okay, well, you are with us by phone, so you are technically participating.
Continue on.
Please, are you going to repeat that?
Hey, City Manager, did you have Katie coming on next?
I did, but I no longer see Katie's face either. So, oh no, there she is. I see her, Katie. Never mind. You just got moved when Councilor Mans got moved.
There's been a Katie sighting.
No worries. I can take it away. Thank you, Martha. Good afternoon, Mayor Studebaker and councillors. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
So since last Thursday, our communications team has been very busy, as you can imagine. We developed content and placed a full page ad in the LO Review, which included some public safety reminders about walking safety, social distancing, PPE donations for fire and police, scammers, price gouging, and also the reminder about the police prescription drug pickup program, and then speeding and traffic violation reminders. We did share Councillor Colhoff and Councillor Lamott's video this week on the city's website, YouTube, and across our social media platforms. Councillor Colhoff was released on Tuesday, and then Councillor Lamott's was today. So they will also be included in our recap newsletter tomorrow. So thank you both. They were very awesome videos. We have supported the business assistance team in sharing information and messages about the grant program and our Open for Business list. We also developed and launched our weekly staff video and collage program. Sorry, not collage, collage program. And the purpose of this is to share images and videos of many of our behind the scenes dedicated staff that are still providing essential services. It kind of helps humanize us and reminds our community that we're still hard at work and we're here for them while they're staying home and staying safe. I'll share a little bit more about that and show you some examples at the end in a few minutes. Our Parks Department kicked off their virtual programming with the LO Camp in Place event last night. And this was a really great event that got a lot of engagement. People in the community shared a lot of posts on Instagram and we reshared those. Did have a step-by-step guide that was available for people. It was actually on KPTV 10 p.m. news last night, picked up from our social media posts. And I've also heard that today the city of Wilsonville liked it so much they're now going to promote the same event in their city tomorrow night. We also have sent out, Parks have been working with police and getting out some thank you signage and banners up around the city, thanking our essential workers. Also, the Youth Action Council has been working with Parks and Police Department. They've created some greeting cards with themes which are thank you to essential workers and hi to a senior in a living facility. And they're working with the police department and CERT to distribute those. That's something that they'll be working on moving forward. So they've been enjoying creating those cards. As far as messaging and social posts, we've been sharing messages about the TriMet service changes, the LO Camp in Place information. We did share some information on Monday morning about the CDC mask guidelines. Also the Open for Business promotion for the list. We've been pushing that out as well. We did on Tuesday afternoon, we did share a really firm message about nicer weather. Doesn't mean driving to parks. And we continue to sort of reiterate those messages throughout. And we've also been sharing the information yesterday about the business grant application going live. And today we also had a sidewalk chalk project that we're sharing. We're encouraging people to get out and draw on their sidewalks or on their stoops and say thank you to essential workers. So that's another great idea that Parks came up with. Since March 23, the CIC has responded to over 200 calls. They did have a lot of calls today when the Business Assistance Grant program was launched. And then they've also been busy in the last couple of days as well. As far as actions and goals for our next period, Parks and Recreation is continuing to prepare their virtual programming, and they're actually putting together a hub of information and activities on their Parks website. We'll be sharing content regularly to promote some of their programs that they've got going. And as I mentioned, the Youth Action Council will continue on additional rounds of the themed cards. We're continuing to support the Business Assistance Task Force, and then also we will assist Julia and the Utility Assistance Task Force with any messaging and promotion as needed. We do have one of our staff, Jamie Inglis, is checking in each week with the hunger fighters to see how can we assist them. And so far, they have just said that they're really grateful for our support and they appreciate the promotion that we're providing. So we're checking in with them each week. Tomorrow, we'll be sharing our weekly recap newsletter with you, which goes on next door. It'll be on, hopefully, the digest as well. And as for messaging over the next couple of days and over the weekend, we'll have a video. Martha did a really great video, so we're going to be putting that out tomorrow, posting that, and then we'll also have the paired city manager's office, city attorney's office photo collage. I'll show you that in a second. And then some messaging about Arbor Week. I think we will continue to ramp up our warm weather reminders and messaging. I know PD and Parks have been concerned about that, and that's also a regional concern. So we will be resharing those messaging as well. Councillor Manns.
Yes, the Youth Leadership Council might be available to do some messaging, a video, for example, around park use and things perhaps directed more toward that demographic if you want them.
Perfect. Yes, I'll bring that back to the team and we can discuss that.
Perfect. And Jenny Slepian would be the contact on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as other messaging for next week, we have Councillor Wen and Councillor Mann's videos that are up, and we'll also be shifting. We'll have a LOCOM collage and video because it's actually National Public Safety Telecommunications Week next week. So Leanne Sanger from LOCOM reached out to me to see if they could go first with our division collage and video. And then the following week, we'll have Councillor Wenland and Councillor O'Neill's, and then the water treatment plant will feature as our collage and then videos. And so let me see if I can pull up, let me see if I can share with you the photo collage. See if you can see that. Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes.
So that was one that we pulled together last week. As you recall, we did get interviewed by Clara Howell last week, and we thought we had this idea in our sort of toolbox, thinking, okay, well, this is a great idea. We should start doing this, and we came together really quickly and thought this would be great for her to share it with the article, and then we said, well, let's make this a weekly thing. So we pulled that together, and that we posted that last week. And then on tomorrow, can you see that? The new one?
Oh.
That's our city manager's office and city attorney's office. Some of the familiar faces there for you. So we are going to be using the same message over and over again, and then plan to release those on Fridays. In conjunction with the video, the staff video we do. So it did get a lot of great engagement last week. And so I think it's just a nice positive message to share with the community. And with that, I think I'm done. Did you have any questions?
Councillor Wenland.
I don't know whether you would spring for the money or not, but I love this LO Together thing going on, and every year they put a banner across State Street for different, since we're not having any events like the lobster feed and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, you put something along where LO Together, I think that's a very catchy thing, and then even maybe have the website or number that they can call information. Anyway, just a thought that to try to bring us together, because we usually have a banner where the LA Arts Festival or the Lake Oswego Arts Festival or the lobster feed or things like that, and nothing's going to be flying across State Street for several months now because we won't be able to have any events. So maybe just a big thing to say LO Together, just to try to bring us together. Just a thought.
I like that idea. And I know that Parks has been using the LO Together, our hashtag on the signs that they've been putting up around parks and some of the existing banners, but I can definitely talk to Jamie and our Parks Department about seeing if there's additional signs we can put up.
Councilor Lamont.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, John, and maybe it's at the grocery stores because that's where most people in town would be seeing them most. And State Street. I mean, just something thanking everybody, hello together at the 6 grocery stores or 5 grocery stores.
Councilor Kohlhoff.
The only thing that we should put in the back of our minds is that in the event that the newspaper diminishes and we start to not have as much news. I understand more what you're doing is like messaging and communication and keeping spirits up and so forth. But news that we think of in terms of journalism, they get squeezed. And I'd like to see us, at least in the back of our minds, be thinking about how we might be able to fill that gap if in fact that starts to be a real problem. One of the big things about having the review and the reporters we've had, at least since I've been paying close attention, is they often get it. I was there and they got things that I didn't catch, and it was always very helpful. But I'm a little concerned about that. And maybe we start finding a way to build up that expertise to do journalism, not so much PR, but real capturing of facts to be able to put out. Does that make sense?
It does. It's expensive. In my last employ, we had staff reporters who actually covered us like they were newspaper reporters, and it's not as inexpensive as buying advertisements in the Review. I'd rather do what we can to help the Review survive than permanently add staff.
Right, but be aware that this might be a need. Done.
Katie, does any other questions or discussions? Katie, does that conclude your presentation?
It sure does, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's what we have for you. On Monday, we'll give you the update on the continuation of the state of the emergency. We'll also give you a parks update, and I'll see what we can pull together in terms of just a very thumbnail sketch at the financial trends that we're watching.
Councilor Mans?
If this is an appropriate time, I would like to talk for just a minute about Fletcher Farms and the situation there. Strictly from my perspective, not for discussion today, but for people to consider going into our Monday or Tuesday, our Monday discussion about what we plan to do at Fletcher Farms. I appreciate all the emails that we've received. I appreciate that many folks live in apartments. Many folks are dependent, apparently, upon the vegetables that they receive, or that they don't have yard space or live in an HOA where they can't plant gardens. But on the other hand, our leadership, our charge is to make sure that we flatten the curve and work for the good of the whole. I am not anti-gardener, not advocating that we don't find some solution to allow people to garden. But on the other hand, I think we have to think carefully about the consequences of opening the garden and what conversations that may bring up and our other public park facilities and how we can keep people safe at the garden. I tend to be on the very more conservative side of COVID safety for a number of reasons. So I would be inclined to keep it closed. That said, I'm looking forward to our discussion on Monday and want to make sure that everyone knows my position and that hopefully we walk away with one united voice, which really is the most important thing to me after making sure that we are absolutely providing public safety, public health, and taking care of our community in the best way that we can and being leaders. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks, staff. Thanks, council. Thanks, Mayor, for letting me go on.
Any further comments or questions, discussion? All right, that being the case, this meeting will be adjourned and we'll see you guys on, wait a minute, Council, the city recorder.
I do request that you consider the April 2nd meeting
Oh,
minutes.
the minutes, yes, exactly.
Thank you.
On the consent agenda or on the agenda is the minutes from April 2nd.
Move to
Make a
accept.
motion that we approve those.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions? Okay, call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor Studebaker.
Thank you, yes.
And Councillor O'Neill,
Yes.
Nguyen,
Yes.
Lamont,
Yes.
Wendland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
and Kohoff.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you all on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Parking lot or?
Happy Easter.